Hey, I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering. Thanks for joining us on this quick lesson on great chord moves in the key of A. This is part of a series, a 5-part series, of which this is the 4th one. We've done great chord moves in G and D and C. Now we're to A. The last one is going to be E, which is coming up next time. So let's take a look at great chord moves in the key of A. There is a PDF that goes along with this, so make sure and download that. That link is in the YouTube description down below. Let's dive right in. Each guitar-friendly key, C, G, D, A, and E, has certain chord moves that are characteristic for it. And so we're going to talk about the key of A. We are finally to the key of A. So let's start. Let's kind of get our mind in the key of A here for a second. All right, there are lots of great things that we can do in the key of A that feature the open strings. And that's what sounds best on acoustic guitar and electric guitar as well. Let's dive right into it. Take a look at the first page. Let's talk about just 1 and 2 finger chord moves that are great in the key of A. Well, of course, we have a regular A. Let's talk about that first of all. We're going to be bouncing back and forth between this A, 2, 3, and 4 fingers, or this bar A. Well, Steve, which one is better? Which one's the best one? Don't think of it that way. That's 2 different chords with 2 different purposes, 2 different things that we can do with them. Sometimes you're going to want to do this one. Sometimes it's going to be a better musical situation if you do that one. So it's a good idea to do both. So let's start with this one. If you need to hang on an A for a long time, one of the first options you can do is just do an A to an A sus. Slide that pinky out. Another one is an A to an A2. Just take that pinky off. You can even mix them up, maybe suspended. Another good option is I can do an A and then an E with an A in the bass. Very pretty sounding chord. Sus, back to an A. Hear how that E with an A just sounds so pretty. Take a look at the next page. We've gotten through 3 of them. There's a lot more to come. Take a look at the next one. Another great thing that we can do is we can go from the A5, which is just an A without the 3rd, and we could do maybe a sus from that. So an A sus would be kind of an A, D, and an A, which is also, if you want to think of it, that's kind of like, you know, a D. It works over a D with an A in the bass as well. So you end up with something like this. Just kind of muting it down. Hammer on pull off. I'm just muting with palm muting with my fleshy part of my palm over here. Putting that right over the bridge, just inside just a little bit, maybe about 1/4 of an inch. So I can do that A5 to an A sus or D with an A in the bass. I can also do it high. Well, what if I did an A5 up here at the 7th fret there? Let me check my tuning here. I got all my lights on here. Sometimes that throws off the tuning a little bit. So if I had this A up here, A5 up here, A at the 7th position, with my first finger on the 4th string at the 7th fret, 3rd finger at the 3rd string at the 9th fret, and then pinky up here at the 2nd string at the 10th fret. If I use that as an E5, and then I just bar that first finger, or I could do it low. Or high. Maybe even can do this one. All different kinds of ways that I can expand on an A chord if I need to stay there for a long period of time. All right, we've looked at several different combinations for that. Let's take a look at multiple string chord moves where it's going to use two or more of the strings are moving. Well, first easy one is this A, two with a D with an A. So I'm going to switch now to the A with the bar, the first finger bar, and I'm going to do the bar on the fourth, the third, and the second string. And then I'm going to add to that my second finger on the second string at the third fret, my third finger at the fourth string at the fourth fret. So I get kind of a D triad with an A in the bass. A great thing you can do in the key of A. You ever heard of this? Same thing. All right, so that's one possibility, that A to a D with an A. I can even add the high A to it. Just taking the bar and adding this pinky on the high E string at the 5th fret. This is another one I thought I would throw in for fun. A great chord that I can use all the time in the key of A is this A major 9th. This is the bottom of page 2. And I'm using my second and third finger up here at the 6th position on the 4th and 3rd string. And you end up with this really pretty A major 9th sort of a chord. Hey, if you go down a half step, just move the same two fingers down a half step, you get this beautiful A minor 9th. Just a great sounding voicing on the guitar. Take a look at the next page. This will be page 3. With each key, there are, of course, the main chords in that key, and they're usually on the 1 chord, the 4, and the 5. And then you can also throw in the 2 minor and the 6 minor, maybe even the 3 minor. So let's go through these main chords in the key of A and some other options that you can use to play them. Well, I can always have on page 3, I can always do this A. Okay, well, that's no problem. Well, we learned that we can change that to an A2. That's another possibility if I want to sound a little bit more open, a little bit modern. I can do a bar here, which will allow me to do that little lick there. So that's another thing I can do. I can do just the bottom 3 notes of that, and that gives me an A5. Maybe if I bar my pinky up here at the 5th fret on the second and 1st string, I end up with kind of an A power chord, A5 power chord. So if I want it low, I can be down here. If I want it high, I can I'm barring these two with my first finger, the 4th and 3rd string, and then I'm barring the 2nd and 1st string with my pinky. A little bit of a wide stretch, but it's a great, powerful chord. Hear how that A5 takes out that 3rd, so it ends up being a very powerful sound. That's another option, depending on the musical situation you're in. Oh, what's another thing we can do? I could do an A2 maybe up here. So I'm going to move up here to the 7th position and do this. And I'm going to bar my first finger down here, and you end up with a really pretty sound like this. If you're playing something really sensitive, really sweet, kind of a ballad, you can just have this start moving that first finger or that pinky around, and you can go through all kinds of chords. some unique sounds by just building everything off of that A2. What's another thing we can do? Instead of playing a regular old A, which is what everybody else is going to play, let's turn you into a guitar player that has some different options. Another thing you can do is maybe add that C sharp in the bass. Reach over here with my pinky, put my first and second finger over here, and I end up with this beautiful A2 with a C sharp in the bass. Or maybe if I even wanted to simplify it that, I could put my third finger there, mute out the fourth string, put my first finger on the third string and do it that way. Maybe I could even do the bar here and have the third like that. Another possibility. All the different sounds of an A, okay? So while everybody else is just going, you've got some different options now that you can play. We already talked about our A major ninth. If you're playing something that's more sweet sounding, then you can throw that A major ninth in there. So what did we give you? I think 8 different ways to play an A that's going to get you some unique sounds on the instrument rather than just playing the standard old A. That's the 1 chord in the key of A is an A. The 2 chord would be a B minor. Well, ooh, we have a bar chord. Sounds yucky. Just doesn't put the acoustic instrument in its best voicing. So what are some options that we can do? Well, instead of this big B minor that's hard to play and doesn't particularly sound good, I could switch my fingers around, maybe put my second finger here on the B, third finger on the A, pinky on the D, add an open E to that, and I get a wonderful little B minor 11th. You hear how that just ties everything in together, having that high E ringing, instead of going to a B minor like that. What's another thing? Oh, if I move my second finger up here to the 7th fret, add my 3rd and my 4th to it, and add the open B and open E, I get a B minor 11th up here. Great option. Of course, you can always, with a B minor, turn it into a B minor 7th, take your pinky off, and do that. Maybe even add your pinky down here to this high A. Here's another thing you can do on the B minor, just for, this one's for free. If I'm on that 2 chord, I can always do the little hammer on and pull off. I've got my B minor 7th here, and I'm just going to take my 2nd and 3rd finger off. And I'm left with this kind of A with a B in the bass. Another great option. Okay, so we've talked about things we can do on the 1 chord, the 2 chord. Now let's take a look at the 3 chord. A little bit less, you'll see that a little bit less, but there are a couple things you can do on that C sharp minor. Well, again, you're stuck with a bar chord, so I want to try and avoid that if I can. Well, I can always take my pinky off and end up with the C sharp minor 7th, put my pinky down here if I wanted to. Another option is I can take my 3rd finger and pinky off, and I'm left with just my 1st finger bar and my 2nd finger on that E. It's not really an open voicing, doesn't have any open strings, but it is very useful at times. It still gives you the C sharp minor 7th, but with a little bit of extra color with that 11th note added in. Here's one that you can substitute in that actually does use the open strings, is if I go up to the 4th position, and I do just a little power chord. 5th string, 1st finger, 4th string, 3rd finger, 3rd string, pinky. And then don't bar it, keep the open strings ringing underneath that. That is just as much a C sharp minor 7th as this, but you have open strings now. So I can have the A. A very usable voicing for that. Another way to do that is just like we had our B minor up here, I can move my Move that up 2 frets to the 9th fret, and I've got a C sharp minor 7th there. These little high open strings ringing really gives a bit of continuity between the different chords. We've done it on the 1, the 2, the 3. Now let's look at the 4 chord, another major chord, a D chord. If I'm in the key of A, you're going to see D chords quite a bit. So what all can we do there? Oh, I put a whole bunch of things down there. We can do this D, which is what everybody's going to do, but I can also take my 2nd finger off, and I have a D2. That pairs real good with the A2. D2. A2. Another thing I can do is if I switch my fingers around, put my 2nd finger here, pinky up here, kind of get this power chord. That's another way to play a D, but now it's a D5. I've taken that 3rd away, made it sound a little bit more strong instead of sweet. Another option. Another great thing you can do on a D chord is put the 2nd finger on the bottom and you have a D with an F sharp. A great variation of a D chord. Maybe I can even add that open E in there for a D2. D with an A that we talked about before. That's another option. Here's just another sweet one. Hey, if you're doing that A major 9th, another thing you can do there is do a D major 9th. 2nd and 3rd finger on the 3rd string and 2nd string. We've given you options for the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4. There's only a couple more. Turn the page to page 4, and we have the E chord, the 5 chord. All right, there's all kinds of things we can do over a 5 chord in the key of A. 5 chord in the key of A is going to be an A, B, C sharp, D, E, and E. Well, everybody else is going to be playing that, and that sounds great in the key of E, in the key of A. It's a great sounding E. You'll use that a lot. But what are some other things we can do? Well, we can maybe take our 3rd finger off and make it an E7th. Well, we can add our 3rd finger back on, add our pinky, and I got an E suspended. Maybe I can stretch that pinky way out here on the 4th fret and then make it an E2. Here's another one. You can take that power chord, just like we did for the C sharp minor, move it up here to the E on the 7th fret, and you've got a kind of an E power chord. If you wanted to keep that B in the E string ringing. What are some other things you can do? I can add an E with a G sharp in the bass. Now, this is a little bit of a hard to reach chord if you haven't done it before. 2nd finger is going to be on the 6th string at the 4th fret. 1st finger is going to be reach way back on the 4th string at the 2nd fret and catch that E there. 3rd finger is back at the 4th position, 4th fret, and then pinky is on the 2nd string, 5th fret. A little bit hard to grab initially, but worth it because you're going to use this chord a lot. If I switch my fingers around and use 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and then just have the open B and E, that's an E2 with a G sharp. What's another thing I can do? I can do a D with an E in the bass. Up here at the 7th fret, I'm just going to do the middle strings, the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd, and 2nd. 1st finger bar at the 7th fret. So if I'm in the key of E, or A, sorry, with an E. As long as I'm up there, hey, if I add my pinky down to the first string at the, what is that, the 9th fret, I got kind of an E suspended 13th. I think that, what is it, that song by Feels So Good by Chuck Mangione kind of starts with that. Starts with that chord right there, an E suspended 13th. Oh, if you're doing a little bit more of a bluesy setting, you could do maybe an E 9th. First finger, and then your second finger is barring all these. Maybe I can even do an E 9th. If I'm doing something really bluesy, I can maybe put my pinky out one, make it a sharp 9. Kind of a Stevie Ray Vaughan sort of a chord that he used a lot. Take a look at the next one. The 6 minor, the F sharp minor. Well, your options are a bar chord. Maybe I can make it a F sharp minor 7. Still an ugly bar chord. But look at this guy. If I put my second finger on the 6th string at the 2nd fret, skip the 5th string, kind of mute that out, then have my 3rd finger and my pinky down there, I have an F sharp minor 11th. If I'm doing a little bit more jazz stuff, maybe I can make that an F sharp minor 9. Up here at the 7th position there. Another option there is I could put my pinky out and bar my first finger. I get an F sharp minor 11. Remember, here was that A2. F sharp minor 11th, that's another option I can do. Take a look at the next line down. Common tone voicings. Generally, I want to stay with open strings. It just sounds good on guitar. What are the voicings that I can go through the various chords and still use these open strings? Well, for an A, I'd use an A2. For the B minor, I'd use a B minor 11th. For the C sharp minor, I'd use the one with the open strings. If I needed to do maybe an A with a C sharp in the bass, I'd probably do that A2 with a C sharp in the bass. And a D2. Look how all of these have an open E, and sometimes an E and a B at the top. F sharp minor 11th. Scoot that up 2 frets. E2 with a G sharp in the bass. So if I put those in some progressions, take a look at the next line down there. A typical 1, 6 minor, 4, 5. Well, you could do this, which is what everybody else is going to do. You could turn that into this, an A2, F sharp minor 11th, D2, E sus to an E. Do it again, do it again. Do you hear how that just sounds so much more guitar friendly when I play it in that key? Also, remember, all of these things in A, if I use my capo, I can get them into B flat, into B, into C maybe, and then I start getting into some other keys. But if you want, so if you find yourself in the songs in the key of B flat and you still want to use these, just slap that capo on the 1st fret and you're ready to go with your A voicings there. Take a look at the next one. Let's use our 3rd in the bass to help get us to that D2. So we end up with a chord progression that sounds like this. I'll do it again. Great option if you just have an A to a D, an E to an F sharp minor. Without those voicings, you would sound like this. Not bad, but I can do so much more creative things with it. Take a look at the next page, page 5. I just thought I would throw this in there just to throw some other voicings that use these common tones in them. We have our A major ninth, A minor ninth, A major ninth, maybe do a little E minor ninth. And then look at this, I just move my second finger, add my third finger. I've got an A ninth, and then I take those second and third fingers and move them up a fret and down a string, and I get a D major ninth. Beautiful. Then just slide those back. Maybe add that first finger there, creating that D minor ninth to a D minor 6/9, and then to a C sharp minor 7th. Maybe an F sharp suspended. A little tension in there between the 3rd and the 4th right there. B minor 11th to an E7 to an A2. So listen how that sounds. 3, 4. Just some great inner line movement. You made a progression that sounds particularly uniquely great on guitar when otherwise it would have been a very complicated progression. Look for little moves like that. Here's an easy one. We've talked about this in some of the other keys. I can always go up here to the 9th fret, put my first finger down there on the last 3 strings and bar it. Then I'm going to put my second finger at the 10th fret on the 2nd string, add my pinky to the high first string at the 12th fret, and end up with these 3 notes. I need to change my strings. But look how, if I do that little hammer onto it, I end up with... cool little guitar-friendly part, and all I'm doing is kind of just doing this A and wobbling back my second finger. Let's take a look at some inversions as we kind of wrap this up. We did inversions on the A. I can add my 3rd finger, add that 3rd in the bass to the C sharp, which leads me right up to the D. The D with an F sharp, E7. Maybe an E with a G sharp, A, maybe a D with an A. So that progression sounds like this. All right, just one more concept I want to throw at you. If I look at the next page, page 6, we have a 4 to 5 to 1, a D to an E to an A, a combination you're going to see quite a bit. Well, a little thing I can do is use this D with the F sharp, E with a G sharp to an A chord. And that I put the tab down in there as well. That sounds like this. Another progression that you could have is common is a 2 minor, the 2 to 5 to 1. Well, if I wanted to add something to that, maybe I could do B minor 11th. Then I did a little walking up here. E with a G sharp, F sharp with an A, E with a G sharp, that's 2nd, 3rd finger just moving up. With the bar, and then I just hammer on. Now hammer on and off with that. You can use that same walk, but this time walking down A, E with a G sharp, F sharp with an A, E with a G sharp. To get down to an E. If I want to go up to a D, maybe I could do an A, B with a D, C sharp with an E, and then get to the D chord there. There you go. All right, we have gone through just about as many guitar tricks in the key of A as I could put down on paper and think about. I hope that's of help to you. Check out this lesson and learn these forms as well as the other lessons in the other keys. Hey, I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering. Thank you for joining us on this lesson, and we will see you guys at the next one. Okay. Thank you, guys, for coming along on this ride in the key of A. Wow, we went through some great things in the key of A. Did y'all enjoy some of these inversions? Diane says, and we need the A minor ninth at, ooh. Is that what you're trying to tell me? Oh, that's a cool one. Not one I use a lot, but that's a cool one. Very cool. Diane, you come up with the best stuff there. All right, if you're interested, take the PDF, learn all you can from it. Let me play you something. It's just such a pretty time. Thought I'd do What a Wonderful World. There you go. Hey, Nancy Lawing is asking a great question. What is the difference between an A2 and an A5? All right, well, here's how that works, Nancy. Chord naming, it's a strange, often confusing thing. But if you just see an A, that would be the first, the third, and the fifth of the A scale, which would be an A, a C sharp, and an E, in some sort of an order. A, C sharp, E, so it could be that. Or C sharp E A, or E A C sharp, doesn't matter how you slice it. It's all an A. All right, well, if I take that third out, I can have, well, let's do this. If we take the third out, and you're just left with 1 and 5, that's an A5. So if I just take the A out, then I'm just left with the root and the fifth, the A and the E, in various combinations, you know. Now, if I go back to my A chord and I add a note, this time I'm going to add the second. So I still have the 1, 3, and 5, the A, C sharp, and E in there, but I'm going to add the second. So I'm going to... Now, in practice, sometimes an A2 will take out the C sharp, take out the third, and you're just left with, you know, the 1, 2, and 5, if you want to think of it that way. Sometimes it leaves it in there. If they deliberately want it without there, they would say something like A2 no third. I've seen that sometimes. So, you know, if sometimes, see, chord, I wish I could say it's everybody writes it the same way. They don't. Sometimes you'll see A add to, which would be an A, 1, 3, 5, but you're adding the second note. Sometimes, usually, in most modern situations, they'll just say A2, and that gives you the option of whether you want to include the third in there or take it away. So the difference between an A2 and an A5 would be an A5 is just A, E, and A, and an A2 would be an A, B, E, and then maybe an A, B, C sharp E. There you go. Hey, I want to tell you one thing before we get out of here. Hey, do you wash your hands before you play? Remember how your mom always would say, wash your hands before you eat? Well, let's add one thing to that. Wash your hands before you play. Because the oils on your fingers have a tendency to transfer onto your strings, and if you do not wash your hands before you play, the oils, the natural oils on your fingers are going to deaden your strings quicker than they would otherwise need to be if you don't wash your hands. So it's just a good habit to get into is to wash your hands before you play. That way the oil on your hands, anything that would be grubby on your hands, doesn't gunk up your strings and take the life out of them quicker than it needs to be. So just a little housekeeping thing, try and wash your hands before you play. It'll give your strings a little bit more life, and it will you'll be able to move on your strings a little bit better. You know, they have things that they can put on, fast fret and things like that. I generally avoid those like the plague. It's basically just oil that you're adding to the strings, and anything you add to the strings is taking away from the natural resonance of the string because it gets within the coils and stuff like that. Now, sometimes you just need to be able to move your hands on the instrument, and I've done this a bunch of times too, where you just kind of get, oils from your nose or something, or your face or something like that, just in the heat of battle if I need to be able to, if my guitar is gunky or I'm playing a gig outside and it's 100 degrees, and you're doing some sort of outdoor gig and your strings are all gunked up, you kind of need that slipperiness. But in general, if you're not in that specific situation, I would try and avoid adding anything to the string, including the oils from your fingers, if I can control that. And that's usually you can do that by washing your hands, just a good thing. Peg Goodman is asking, what is that black thin line mic you're using? This is a Sennheiser. Baby, you can turn it off here for a second. This is the Sennheiser MKE 600 microphone. It's this guy right here. This is a great mic. This is actually the same mic that you are hearing me, my vocal through. There we go. Records guitar and vocals. Does phantom power. Great mic. It's not all that expensive. And basically what you're hearing is this mic going directly into the board. Sometimes, occasionally, we add just a hint of reverb. But other than that, you are hearing just that mic. So it's a great mic. I've used it for years. It's a great mic. Hey, Willard is saying, what's the difference between an A2 versus an A sus2? Okay. All right, Willard, you've asked the million-dollar question. Here's some of the things that are involved with your question. Here in America, we use suspended to refer almost entirely to the fourth. So when you see suspended, that means they're suspending the third, and they are substituting the fourth in between it. So instead of 1, 3, 5, an A suspended fourth would be A sus4 would be 1, 4, 5, or A, D, and E. Now, in Europe, they have not only sus4s, but they commonly use sus2. So in their way of thinking, one's not right or wrong. It's just there's two schools of pedagogy on this. The European way of looking at it, you'll see an A sus2, and what that is telling you is that you're suspending the third, again, not playing the third, and you're suspending in its place, you're substituting in its place the second. So in Europe, the A sus2 would be an 1, 2, 5. 1, 2, 5. Now, in America, we pretty much don't use that. We just call it an A2. So whenever we see sus in a chart or something like that, we're generally thinking that's the fourth. We're talking about some sort of a fourth. So you'll see maybe an A7 sus, an A13 sus, and all that is like an A7 sus, or here's an A7, and then I add the fourth to it. So it doesn't say A sus4, it would just say A sus. Or A7 sus, something like that. So again, A2 and A sus2, from our American way of looking at it, are two different names of the same chord. Okay? Don't let that confuse you. It has confused me many a times. I'll be reading some sort of Broadway show or something that is the composer was from the European way of doing things, and you'll see sus2s everywhere. And here in my American mind, I'm playing the fourth, and they're not talking about the fourth at all. They're talking about the second. Gene C. is saying, Tim Calhoun recording guitar at home. Yes, Tim Calhoun, good friend, did a workshop at our conference about recording guitar at home and got way into the mics and different mics to use. These mics have worked good for me. They're not all that expensive, and they have done well. I have been mic'd with, huge diaphragm mics that are $6,000, $8,000. One of the best sounds I got, weirdly, was from a little clip-on. It's almost like a lavalier, something that you would do like a person that would be speaking. They did that, and then they aimed another mic like way up here. It was a crazy setup, but boy, he dialed it in. It just sounded amazing. So the main thing is just trying to you don't want your mic to be aimed right at the sound hole, because all of the sound is coming out there, so it's going to sound very boomy. What you want your mic aimed at is typically, they say in the biz, the 15th fret. So here's the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th. So you want your mic aimed anywhere from 3 to 6 inches away from that 15th fret. Not aimed at the sound hole. You're going to get a very boomy sound that way. You don't want to be aiming back here. That's going to sound very brittle. So generally, if you're recording, put that mic about 4 inches away, sometime between 4 and 6 inches away, and aimed at that 15th fret, and you're generally going to get a pretty good sound. Oh, I also want to let you know our fall fingerstyle retreat. Here it is, just May, first week of May. And our fall fingerstyle retreat in October, we only have 9 slots left. We are well over 2/3 of the way filled with our fall fingerstyle retreat. So if you are interested in our fall fingerstyle retreat, the link is in the YouTube description down below. Hey, there was a song we did at the fall fingerstyle retreat called Sunday Drive. I'll see if I can play that, see if I can remember that. There you go. A little bit of Sunday drive. Hey, keep up the great work in your own learning. I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering. Thanks for joining us on this lesson. Learn all you can, and we will see you guys next time.